Before we get started with today's podcast, we'd like to ask returning listeners to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really enjoy it, share a link to this podcast with friends or family who would enjoy hearing our weekly discussions about basketball and basketball culture. Now, on to the show.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there. Nice move by Steve Fisher here.
Rock, Chalk, Jayhawk, welcome to the 19.9 podcast. I'm the Chucker, 19.9's resident historian, and we are thrilled to welcome former Kansas Hooper Jeff Hawkins to the show for another installment of Tales from the Bench. A 5'11 guard from Kansas City, Jayhawk, as he was conveniently known, was a 5-year member of the Jayhawks program, where he went from redshirt freshman to senior starter. He was a member of 2 Final Four teams, including the 2003 Kansas squad that narrowly fell to Syracuse in the national title game. Hawkins joins us to share some of the richest memories of KU hoops, including the Jayhawks' memorable 2003 campaign, playing for Roy Williams and Bill Self, hooping in the Fog, and hosting his own podcast on Kansas basketball. Kansas, of course, is one of the latest additions to the 19.9 family, and we're digging right into the school's rich basketball history here on the pod. Just recently, my partners Aaron and Josh chatted with filmmaker Josh Swade about his quest to return James Naismith's Original Rules of Basketball back to their rightful home in Lawrence, Kansas. That adventure, of course, was recounted in the 30 for 30 documentary, There's No Place Like Home. If you haven't checked out that pod, I hope you will. Here today, though, let's talk some early 2000s KU hopes and welcome Jeff Hawkins into the show. Jeff, thanks for joining us here on the 19.9 podcast.
Hey, I just tell you, man, it feels weird saying that the early 2000s, man. Before that was made me feel young. Now it makes me feel old to hear that, man. But thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Hey, man, you might be one of the youngest guys I've interviewed. I talked to guys. Yeah, I've been blessed through this series. We've talked to guys from 85 Villanova, nice. 87 Syracuse. So we go back quite a bit, and man. College basketball is rich history, and it's fun to dig in. So,
well, I'll put my break.
With your career, man, you had a solid career at Sumner Academy in Kansas City. Your first team All-State, 2 state titles. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up at KU to begin with.
I played a year-round basketball growing up. Did that from Yay High, and I was fortunate enough to get on a really good travel team. Kansas City 76ers, Wayne Simeon actually played on that team as well, too. So, at the end of the day, and Wayne knows, I always credit him because, I played on the Kansas City 76ers, and Wayne was recruited heavily, by all major D1s. And, for me to be able to play on that team and be able to, show what I could do on the court, I think that kind of, helped KU to take notice because they recruited Wayne. I think they've been recruiting Wayne since he was like in 7th grade. So, I got with that squad my sophomore year and played solid. So, it was just a blessing just to be able to be in a situation like that. And not only to be on that team, I was coached by a former guy that said a former coach that coached in Lafayette Norwood, rest in peace, who sat on the KU bench with Darnell Valentine as well too as a coach. So he was our AAU coach. So, it was just blessings on tops of blessings that how I felt in the laps of KU.
I mean, did you being from Kansas City, I mean, KU is, the basketball mecca there. Were you always kind of hopeful that you can go to KU because that's the big time, or were you recruited by some other schools, or how did it kind of end up that regard?
It's funny, man, because I had my parents, we lived in Kansas City my whole life, but both of my parents are from Oklahoma, small town Oklahoma. So they're more Oklahoma Sooners, Oklahoma State. That's more what they talked about. So I really didn't start catching wind of, KU till I was like 6th, 7th grade. That's when like 1992. So when I was about 10, almost 5th grade, 6th grade, that's when I really started catching wind. But the school I really, really, really wanted to go to was UCLA. So Earl Watson, I call him a mentor, a big brother to me. He and my brother played on the same AU team. I've known Earl my whole life. I've grown up watching him, so I always looked up to Earl as this is who I want to be. This is the footsteps I want to follow in. So he went to UCLA. They started recruiting me for a little bit as well too. So I had all my dibs on UCLA, and it just kind of worked out that KU stuck with me and to the end, and that's kind of where I ended.
That's awesome, man. And so you get there in your freshman year, you redshirt. That's the 2001-2002 season. That's a season in which Kansas runs the table in the Big 12. They go 16-0. They make it to the Final Four. It's a great season in school history, 33-4. You've got 6 pros on that squad, so that not playing around. That's a lot of talent. Drew Gooden, Nick Collison, Kirk Heinrich. So though you're redshirting, you're practicing and traveling with the team. That's your introduction to big time college hoops. So what was that first season like for you, and that transition like into Big 12 basketball and at KU specifically with some real talent, man?
It was I'm not gonna lie, it was tough, especially when you come from a high school. You said all state, won 2 state championships, been the man, and now you're coming and you're not even getting to play this next year. So being able to fight through that mentally, that was always a challenge, but something that always took on, and had good mentors with like Jared Hass, who redshirted. He would always talk to me about the importance of not taking a year off and trying to get better. So having guys in my ears and during that way allowed me to kind of mentally push through it. But it was a cool year, man, because I didn't have the pressure of playing. So in practice, I could do a couple other things that maybe some other players didn't, because coach knew at the end of the day I wasn't playing, so I probably wouldn't get yelled at as much. So it was good just being able to learn the system, see kind of how physically strong you have to be. Again, you said 6 pros on that team, so I'm going up every day against those guys, helping those guys try to get ready for the game, the guys that play a majority of the minutes. So it was nothing but fun times, man. Nothing but fun times, and something that I'll always appreciate.
Yeah. And, during that freshman year, you mentioned you go from kind of being, a real standout high school player, and then you're not even playing in games, that freshman year. And again, with all the talent on that team, did you have a moment in that first year where you said, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this? Or did that redshirt year seem to really kind of strengthen your resolve?
Yeah, I think it strengthened it. I mean, you could not from a team. We practiced so much, we did everything together, so we're competing, we're playing together. So you feel, man, I can play. It's like, to me, it was like when I started seeing like we started playing other opponents, and I'm sitting on them, like mentally, I'm like, now if coach just said go get your uniform and go check in, would I be ready to run the offense the way and at that time, like early in the season, I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of liking this red shirt year. Give me a year. I'm liking it better than what I thought it was going to turn out to be, because I get a chance to really sit back. But again, it's one of those deals to where I really felt like going in, if my red shirt would have got pulled, I would be ready to play. So I always tried to have that mindset. And I think that really allowed me, from being so successful in high school, kind of allowed me not to just lay down and say, all right, take it easy, put it in cruise. It allowed me to try to at least keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And especially, like I said, man, that's a big time season, going 16-0 in the Big 12, Final Four run. What memories stick out for you from that first season in the program?
To me, it was just probably like, we were all so close together. Like we did everything together. Even because we come in as freshmen with Wayne, Keith, Aaron, Mike. We come in this big goofy crowd, like bringing a ton of energy. We like to have water balloon fights, knock on the upperclassman door and run, doing all that little crazy stuff. But the upperclassmen, like we hung out with them, like with Drew Gooden, Kirk, Nick, like they all took us in. A lot of us had visits when we were on our visits. Those were the guys that hosted us, so we felt home. But we really hung out and we did a lot of stuff together as a team. So that's like when I think back at the success, it just really makes me think about how tight knit of a team we were. We always had each other back no matter what. But that, and obviously the winning 16-0 Final Four, obviously that's kind of the icing on the cake. But I really think, us being together and so close is what really allowed us to accomplish what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hop forward into the 2002-2003 season, which is really where we're going to spend a lot of time here. Gooden is off to the NBA, but Heinrich and Collison return. You guys are preseason number 2. Again, you're coming off this Final Four run. I want to get a sense just of that 2002-2003 season. What were the expectations for that group internally? Because we see, externally, you guys are preseason number 2, a lot's expected of you. But internally, what did you guys feel you guys could do that year?
Well, win it all. I mean, obviously losing Drew, we're like, man, we're losing Drew. But again, we got a young Keith Langford that's ready to step into his role even more. Wayne Simeon as well, too, who's already proven that, he could play at a high level. And then you got a Jeff Graves who's coming in from JUCO ready to try to fill some of that void. So you had some guys that could really kind of help and patch together what we missed from Drew. And not only Drew, but Jeff Boschee from 3. But when you have Kirk and Nick, and you got those two guys, no matter what, that's going to lead your team, that you got an opportunity to win it all. And that's the way we, came in. We had a goal of that year before when we lost to Maryland. I mean, I remember it vivid. It was, it was just get to the Final Four. Like that was a get to the Final Four. And, we end up, losing to Maryland, didn't get to the championship game. So we tried to, say, hey, we want to win it all. We don't want to just get to the Final Four. We want to not only get to the Final Four, but we want to win it all. So that was our end goal. Like we knew we have the squad that can definitely compete at a high level if we continue to stay together and obviously trust in what Coach William and his staff puts together for us every day.
And so you guys have these expectations and certainly believe you're a Final Four caliber team. But interestingly, you guys actually start the season 3-3. You got losses to UNC, Oregon, and Florida. Your wins are against Holy Cross, UNC Greensboro, and Central Missouri. So at that point, at least 6 games into the season, that is not a tournament-worthy resume at that point. So did that phase that group at all? Did that shake the confidence? Or is it like, hey, man, these are just jitters. We're going to keep rolling forward. What was kind of the vibe of that team after kind of a little bit of a rough start?
It was one of those, like, we knew internally, like, we're fine. And at that point, again, like you talked about, losing Drew Gooden. So now, like, the way Coach Williams worked is, that those first 5 games, even including those exhibition games, that's when he's trying to figure out his rotation. I maybe give him 6 games. He's trying to figure out that rotation. Is it going to be a 7-man rotation, 8-man rotation? What's going to be my guys that are playing majority of the minutes? So he's trying to figure that out. And, obviously that's in that little 6-game stretch. And obviously we were playing in a pretty good tournament against some really good opponents, So it just, it kind of goes both ways, we were kind of in those games and they kind of slipped away from us. So, we could look at it like, man, we could have, either with 1-3 out of those, 2-3, or maybe go 3-3. We just happened to go 0-3, but we still got a great team. We're still doing the right things. We still believe in each other. We just hit a rough patch. We'll make adjustments. We'll get better. And obviously after that Oregon game, that's when Mike Lee came in at the 4. And then that's when they kind of found that rotation after that, and we moved forward. And then we just kind of clicked it and kind of went going. But we didn't doubt. We were, as players, if anything, sick because, they had a free-for-all at our school to where kids could just get in the newspaper, call in, and they would print any comment they say. So we're hearing those comments. We're hearing other fans that, think our season's done. So we were just annoyed, just like, man, we're good. Like, we're fine. We were literally like, we got Kirk and Nick. We're good. We're good. Trust me. And we got Coach Williams. So we're fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. You just kind of like snapped your fingers and like, yeah, we hit our groove. And you guys obviously did. You finished 24-6. I'm curious about what was a key moment or two during that season that gave you guys momentum, confidence, strength. So as you look back on that season, you're like, man, that was a turning point. That was a turning point. What kind of really solidified that team and allowed it to go on this great run and finish the regular season, that is 24-6?
Man, I think it was, when we had that 3-game losing streak against some of those top schools, UNC, Arizona, and
UNC, Oregon, and Florida.
Florida,
the first three,
yeah. When we had those 3 games, like that was, to me, I thought that was our turning point for that season because of what we were kind of going through. Like, we knew we were in a down patch, but we knew we were going to kind of get out of that down patch. But to me, that's where our season turned around because we had all the fans. Oh, there's no doubt that, man, they can't repeat. They can't get there. And then obviously we start clicking. We start winning. We start getting our groove. And obviously playing some Holy Cross, we played some teams that wasn't as tough. But again, at KU, we expect to play the best. We want to play the best. We want to get out there and have the toughest schedule. You look at Coach Self, what he's doing now. Strength of schedule is huge. Gets you prepared for the end game and the tournament run. So we kind of knew that, but I really think our pivoted moment was when we had to fight through that adversity early, because once we got through it, it was just kind of nothing else could stop us type deal. We can get through anything.
And, a question I love asking guys is, who was kind of the engine of that team? Who kind of made it go? It's a very memorable team. Guys remember that Kansas squad. College basketball fans, it's one that they can kind of go to and rattle off some guys who are on that team. But from your perspective, who was the engine of that team? Who made it go?
You always hear Kirk and Nick. Like, I mean, they both made that thing go. Like, sometimes we'd be feeding off of the energy from Kirk because he's pissed because of how we played in the first half, or Coach Williams mad because we're pissed. And now, like, that's the thing about Kirk and Nick, man. That's the cool thing about them. Like, most coaches, they get on their players at halftime or whatnot, and some players might buckle down. But we as players knew we were about to get, if we didn't play good, we're about to go, coach is about to light us up. And then we knew as players, after coach lights us up and leaves, now we're about to get lit up by Kirk and Nick. Not maybe at the same time, or maybe just one. So they both I feel like they both had their foot on the pedal at the same time. And every now and then Kirk would be like, okay, Nick, you can drive, I'll ride. And then they would just switch. But sometimes they would both have to be like, all right, Nick would have some special and he'd be like, hey, I got an extra pedal right here on my side. You keep yours and we're going to push this thing together. So they just kind of, it was Kirk and Nick, man. They drove that team. They made us go.
Yeah. And, those are actually 2 names, a lot of college basketball, little man in the shot. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So bring him up. You're like Chris Paul here, we're loving life. How's it going? We talked about Kirk and Nick being kind of the engine of that team. Those 2 names a lot of college basketball fans know. Who was the unsung hero of that team? Maybe someone a little bit more behind the scenes, or maybe someone maybe not as well known or wasn't one of the stars, but they were one that sometimes maybe brought it all together.
Yeah, that would be Keith Langford. That'd be Keith Langford. You talk about your Kirks and your Nick Hollisons that year, but we knew Keith Langford, man, and still to this day, one of my all-time greatest players that I've played around with, because Keith could always get his shot, had the quickest first step, not only the quickest first step, but the quickest first step. So it was just always tough. But Keith was that guy that we always knew, you give it to him on the wing, he's going to get to the rim and get to the bucket, because he's a lefty as well, too, and he can knock down the open 3 as well, too, and guard the best players, the opposing player's best player.
Gotcha. So let's kind of then jump into the tourney. You guys are a 2 seed in the tourney. You guys take down Utah State, Arizona State. You get Duke in the Sweet 16. We got 2 of the basketball blue bloods going at it. Collison has a great game, goes 33 and 19, and KU moves on. What do you recall about that Duke game specifically?
The Duke game. I pretty
most guys I talk to love beating Duke.
Yeah,
I'm a
of
Duke
course.
fan myself, but most
Of
guys
course.
love beating Duke.
Yeah, we do. But you know what? I'm gonna try to take the. I know Nick had the 32. I'm gonna have to steal a little spotlight on that because Coach Williams gave me that. He pulled me aside before we even got on the bus to go to practice and said, "Hey." Because normally, he'd get on me because I was getting minutes that year, so I got to still play the right way. I can't take bad shots. Everything I have to do is smart. When I'm playing on the blue team, that was a team where the majority of guys played the minutes. So he pulled me aside before and it's like, "Hey, you're gonna be when you're on the red team." Because normally, if I'm on the red team, sometimes the other red team they can just come down and take bad shots. Well, I couldn't do that because I was expected to play blue team. Play minutes if they needed me in the game. So I got to be smart. So I'm like, geez, I can't take this bad shot. He's over here taking these bad shots, not getting yelled at. So he pulls me aside before we leave to go to practice. He says, "Hey, you're going to be when you're on the red team this year, scout team, you're going to be Chris Duhon. And just shoot any shot that you want to." And I'm looking at him like, he said, "If you come past half court and you feel like you need to shoot it, just go ahead and shoot it." So I'm just like, "Oh, okay." So literally that practice, I'm in a whole nother mindset. Like, ooh, Coach Williams just he just unleashed me. The shackles are off, the handcuffs are off. I can do whatever I want in practice when we start scrimmaging. And literally that's, to my day, probably one of the best practices I ever had because I'll just come up, pulling up, hitting deep. So I want to always say I got all those guys prepared because Coach Williams, I really feel like I probably had like 35 in practice in that little setting, pulling up three, getting to the rim because he just let me do whatever I want. So I want to take credit for that and say that I got those.
Good for you, man. Collison can claim all the fame, 33 and 19 against Duke. Well, really, it was you in practice right before.
But no, man, Nick, man, Nick's a stud, man. Like, I've always loved Nick because I thought he was ahead of his time as a player because he could put the ball on the floor, he could run the floor, he could hit the open shot, shoot off the catch, shoot off the dribble. Obviously, he could play down low in the post as well, too, and was very effective. So Nick was just very versatile. And, seeing him go off for 32 never surprised us. He could have done it more often if he wanted to.
Yeah. And, after beating Duke, you guys got next up, you got Arizona with a spot for the Final Four on the line and a return to the Final Four for you guys. Man, there's some firepower on that floor. Not only what you guys got, but then Arizona's coming in with Jason Gardner, Luke Walton, Channing Frye, Andre Iguodala. Those dudes ain't to be played with, and Heinrich must have – I'm looking at the box score in preparation for this. I'm thinking, man, that dude must have the ultimate green light because he jacks up 17 threes.
Yeah.
He was like pre-Steph Curry. So that game is tight throughout, but you guys pull it out 78-75. Besides Heinrich jacking up threes all over the place, what sticks out about that game against Arizona and that trip back to the Final Four?
Yeah, it's always that last play. They had a shot to win it. And Kirk had a great defensive play against Jason Gardner. But that Arizona, that wasn't just the first time we saw them that year. We saw them at the Fieldhouse, and it was crazy. And that's why this game meant so much to us that we had to beat them. We had to beat them, and we knew no matter what, it was going to be a tight game because when we had them at the Fieldhouse, we had them down 20 points at halftime. We had them down 20 points at halftime. So we're like, what? Literally, like, we're not like this in a locker room, like hype, almost like we got this win, fellas. This is a great Arizona team, and we're putting a whooping on them in our house. Well, come second half, they come back, and Salim Stoudemire I don't know I forget how many he had. It was over 40, I believe. Just goes off in the second half. They end up beating us by 20 points. So we already knew it was going to be like, this is going to be a fight. This is going to be a fight. So, and it came down to a defensive possession at the end. And to me, that's what stuck out because it was back and forth. We're going to run, boom, they go on a run. Yeah. We cut the lead. It was back and forth, and it came down to the wire on a great defensive stop by Kirk. And they had a shot. I mean, he had a good look, and it could have failed. And obviously, we're were able to go to the Final Four. So that was really a good feeling for those guys and the team.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, that's a second consecutive Final Four for the Jayhawks. And I'm curious from your perspective, what was different about heading down to New Orleans in 2003 compared to the previous season in Atlanta when you guys actually fell to Maryland, which we mentioned earlier? What was different about this second trip to the Final Four compared to the first?
Shoot. Man. It was, I mean, if you could just see like how I'm smiling right now, it's just like, geez, it's just like so much like, it was just like, I don't know, man. Like describing the feeling is crazy because it was just like everything was so much better. And obviously, you know, we knew, all right, we got to the Final Four. We've been there, you know, pretty much we were, you know, one of the favorites to win it. But everything just seemed a little bit different because we were just there the last year. So we were kind of coming in like, all right, we know how things are going to work. Security was a little bit crazier. In our first game, I think we got, I mean, just having the police escorts to practice. I mean, like everything was just magnified to a whole nother level. Just the fans, you know, I mean, it's just a great experience when you can get to the Final Four. It's really an unbelievable feeling. I mean, you know, obviously every team goes there to try to win it, but being there back to back it's a crazy feeling. It's a crazy feeling that something that I'll always cherish for the rest of my life. But it was just different in so many ways because everything was just amped up a little bit more because we saw how it was the year before and it was already amped up because it was the Final Four. But we were here for a second time, so things were just a little bit more magnitude, just on a little bit more of a bigger scale. But great memories, man.
Yeah. Oh, we should all be able to go to Final Fours.
Yeah.
So
I wish the whole world experienced that.
You know, you guys faced Marquette and Dwayne Wade. And Dwayne Wade, you know, one of the greatest basketball performances probably the 21st century. He just takes it to Kentucky to get to the Final Four, bring Marquette into the Final Four, drops a triple-double on the Wildcats. National title game spot on the line against Marquette, and you guys smack them. I mean, you guys hang 59 on Marquette in the first half. You win 94-61. What went so well in that game?
Man, just everything was kicking. I think I'd have to
I mean, you're sitting there watching that. Are you like, my God, I can't believe we're smacking someone like this in the Final Four?
Yeah, well, you know me, I'm like, well, like I said, like the minutes I got, like I got minutes, you know, I would sub in for Aaron to give him breaks or, you know, quick boom, 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 you know, that would be, I knew I would get in at some point in time in the game to relieve Aaron, to give him a quick breather so we can get back in after a TV timeout. I kind of knew when I was going in with Coach Williams. That's kind of how he was. You knew when you were going in. So in the first half, I'm looking like, whoa, I was like, man, I might get like 10 whole minutes in this in the Final Four. Like the way the game's going, I'm just sitting there like, man, but everything was clicking. Like, I mean, everything was clicking. I mean, when we got Aaron Miles is obviously known for breaking down his defenders, creating plays. But I think Miles was hitting threes. Everybody was just, everything was clicking. I mean, that's all I can say. We played that national championship game like that. Everything was clicking. Like there's nothing that could stop us that night. And obviously we were playing against a Dwayne Wade, a great Dwayne Wade, who when we first saw him on Scout Report, I mean, all the Marquette clips that we watched were, you know, it was, this player can do this player can do that. And then like the 90% of the rest of the clips were Dwayne Wade. And we're just looking at all of the clips. And I'm like, this dude looks like a mini Michael Jordan, just like running down the court, just dunk here, steal here, shot here, fade away. I'm like, ooh, man. So we came in the game like, oh, man, this is going to be a good game. And obviously, you know, we were able to counter some things on our end and be able to shut him down and be able to have that type of a lead and a win and get a win.
Yeah, you know, it's always great when you have those games where, man, the ball just goes in the hoop constantly. Yeah. Everyone's in it. And so you guys are opposite Syracuse for the national title. I'm curious, you know, we talked about that Duke game. And what stands out for you about the Duke game is not the actual game. It's you getting the green light in practice. So as you guys kind of, you got this Saturday win against Marquette, Monday is the national title game. What stands out in the lead up to that national title game? Was there something the day before, a walkthrough, a dinner, maybe the locker room before tip-off? What just kind of sticks in your mind, something you'll kind of never forget from kind of the lead up to that national title game?
Whew. I mean, from what I remember, man, like, and to be honest, that's a really great question because I really never had to kind of tap in, never had a question like that, the mood on that. I've had so many questions about all my Final Four trips. I've never had that one, so this is kind of getting me thinking, but, our mood was, it was just kind of lax. We kind of, maybe you could say too lax. We maybe thought like, man, this is ours. It's ours to lose type. That's kind of the feeling that we had. Like, it's ours to lose. Like, and that's to me what really sticks out because there was no added pressure. We really felt like we should have been in this situation even from when we started out in that 3-game losing streak. We said we still thought this is the spot that we're supposed to be in. Yeah. And we were everybody was laser focused, but just in a lax mood, just like, we can see that it's right here.
Yeah. And I got to imagine you went into the game with kind of real strong confidence coming off that Marquette game too. So,
yeah,
we've had 2 others join us on the 19.9 podcast, Jason Andreas from Michigan State and David Nelson from Georgia Tech. And the one question I love asking guys is, hey, tell me about a guy that an opponent you would play and you looked at and were like, yo, man, that dude is from another planet. Like, that dude is sick. And both of them, without hesitation, said Carmelo. Yeah. Did you see it too?
Yeah.
Did you have that feeling like, man, this dude is from another planet? Or were you like, no, that's a good ball player, but I've seen better? Or was it like, no, man, that dude's something different?
Yeah, Carmelo's Carmelo, man. Like, Hall of Famer, All-Star, stud. But to me, it was Dwayne Wade. Like, to me, it was Dwayne Wade. Like, when we saw this dude in film, like I told you, it was just like, man, this dude looking like my eye, MJ. Like, his mannerisms, the way he was moving, and he was doing fadeaways.
Smooth, man.
Yeah, it was very smooth. So it was just like, man, this dude right here. But then you see this is a young Carmelo Anthony. Young Carmelo, fearless Carmelo Anthony. Just like, this Carmelo was the guy that, he was carrying himself as if he was a senior or even a 5th-year senior. Like, Carmelo, that's the way he carried himself. So you just knew, like, man, this guy can hoop. He can go inside, outside. He can hit you with the 3 ball. Like, he can do it all. So, but to me, it was just Dwayne Wade. No knock to Melo, but don't get me wrong, Melo's right up there too. Like, trust me, it's a game changer.
Well, I gotta imagine some of the clips you were seeing of Wade were from that Kentucky game, which was, just an all-time individual effort, man. Wade, Chicago's very own, where the Chuckers from.
Yeah, for sure.
He's sweet. Sure. And so that's that game against Cuse, man. That is a memorable game for college basketball fans. The Orange jump out on you guys. They're up 53-42 at the half. But ironically, it's not Melo that's the star of that first half. It's another freshman named Jerry McNamara.
Yeah.
So take us into that halftime locker room. You thought you guys could win the national title. You believed you could win the national title. You're down 11 at the half. What was that locker room like? What do you recall about that locker room?
It was just a whole different type of focus, just like from a mindset where, like, man, like, you can see it. We're like, dude, if we don't step it up, we're going to lose this game type deal. And, like, we're done. And not only are we done, not like we just lost in the Sweet 16, trying to make it to the Sweet 16, second round, even in the Final Four. Like, this is for it all right now. It's like, is this how we're trying to go out type deal? Like, it was a real quiet locker room. It was a real quiet locker room, but you could see the focus on everybody. Obviously, Kirk and Nick, they're going to say some things. There's some guys mumble jumbling some things. But for the most part, it was, man, we're almost like we're sitting there just waiting for Coach Williams to come in and figure out what we got to do as players. Almost like we're just players sitting in there like, all right, we got to wait for our coach to see what the next game plan, and then we're ready to dive in and execute it to whatever. It's like as players, we're just like, okay, what do you got for us, coach, type deal.
And that's a good point. Does Williams come in with like fire and brimstone, or is he like, hey, boys, this is what we're going to do? And is it very kind of, just kind of shouting out some directives that he knows that here's what we need to do. We execute this, we're going to be fine. Or was it, what the hell are you guys doing? Let's go. What do you recall about his demeanor?
Yeah. From what I recall, obviously it was, his demeanor was more mellow. Trust me, I've been in some locker rooms when they haven't been, but it was more like, hey guys, we kind of put ourselves in a situation, reading stats, figuring out what we got to do better, and like, hey, it's going out there. I think that's the cool thing about Coach Williams, his ability to adapt in game situations on the fly, and he could tell right now at that time. Probably not the time to, really just start beating up on guys. Obviously, hey, we got to go. We know we got to go, but he's not really getting on guys too hard right then, because he knows he needs everybody together and mentally strong to get through this, especially in a national championship game.
Yeah. And, Cuse, after being up 11 at the half, they maintain a kind of comfy lead. They're up 12 with 5 minutes to go. So, I mean, they've kind of ceded control of this game. They got it. But you guys kind of claw back in, and you cut it to 3 with a minute to go. And Cuse really seemed to be kind of backpedaling. They're reeling, man. As you are sitting there, Jeff Hawkins, Jayhawk, what are you thinking? Like, yeah, we got this. I mean, or are you thinking like, all right, we're almost there? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Just what are your feelings sitting there watching this all unfold in front of you and being a really vested player in this,
Well, at that time, at that time, we're, you said being down 12 or 5 minutes, you're just like, man, in a national championship game against a great team. At that time on the bench, you're just like, man, I hope we got this. I hope we got this. I hope we got this. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. And then the lead starts obviously getting a little bit closer. Then you're just like, yeah, man, like, now that's what we're talking about. We got this. We got this. And obviously, it went down to the wire. We had 2 shots at the end to try to tie for overtime. And it was just one of those deals where we're like, man, we're gonna have another shot. Once we get our shot, the shot that we've been looking for, we're gonna take it and just run with it. And we just couldn't get over that hump. And obviously everyone, free throws killed us that game. Free throws killed us.
Yeah. Yeah. Free throws did kill you guys. Free throws and turnovers. I got to imagine that really eats at a lot of you guys, because you were better than that, and it's sometimes the basketball can be a game that brings so much love, and it can bring a lot of pain too, as we well know. So
right.
One of the most memorable play in that game, you guys have a chance to tie the game at 81 in the closing seconds. Your teammate Michael Lee rises for a 3 in the left corner. Hakeem Warwick has 2 feet in the paint when Heinrich makes a pass, and he comes sprinting out, and he rises and blocks Lee's 3-pointer, blocks it out of bounds. Yeah. And it's really probably one of the all-time great defensive plays in championship game history. Yeah. And I would imagine, I know you're a high school coach now. I mean, if you could put on the clip of that and say, that is effort right there, man, that, it just, when you think about the closing moments of that game, how close you were, how you really believe, like, man, we just need a shot. We're going to be there. But then you think of the aftermath of that game, a very disappointing loss, a very heart-wrenching loss. What sticks out about the immediate aftermath of that game?
For one, I just remember after we lost the game, you always go back to the locker room, because Drew Gooden, obviously he was in the league. So he comes back, he's at the game, and, we're all just in the locker room sitting, and, Coach Williams is talking, and, Drew comes in, and then Drew's just like breaking down, crying, and we're just thinking like, dang, man, you didn't even play this year. You in the league. And then once everybody saw Drew crying, and Drew just going around like giving everybody hugs, like, I'm sorry, y'all. Like he was actually playing, and then everybody just broke down. Like the whole locker room just broke down from there. But then it sucked. But when you look back on it. Obviously, you wish you could replay it, and the outcome was different. But I mean, it just goes to show you, man. Whenever you always have to live in the moment, and you always have to take advantage of the moment, because I guarantee you, every one of those players, every one of those managers, every one of those coaches can go back and say, wow, I probably could have done this a little bit more. Maybe I could have stayed up extra 30 more minutes to grade film or to watch film. Players, I could have, stayed extra 5 minutes after practice, before practice type deal to do something, so we can all go back and look and wish that we, did a little bit more, maybe worked on our free throws or something like that, type deal. So, but when you look back at it, you just appreciate that you were able to get that far and experience it.
Yeah. And sometimes we can learn, as you well know, obviously being a coach now too, there's some great lessons we can get from losses.
Yeah.
It's sometimes tough to go through, man, but it's important for us, and it's part of life. So I talked about Hakeem Warwick's play being one of the most memorable defensive plays. I mean, it's a badass play.
Yeah.
But after the game, there's also one of the most memorable post-game interviews, which I don't know how much you guys even knew about, but there were all these rumors circulating about Coach Williams going to North Carolina, and he's interviewed after the game, the kind of the customary, runner-up interview that they do in the hallway. And he's asked about the North Carolina job on national TV, and he says, I could give a flip about North Carolina, about all that chatter. And so he, of course, takes the North Carolina job, though, soon after, and Bill Self comes to Kansas from Illinois. Now, you played your final 3 years under Coach Self, so 2 under Williams, then the final 3 under Self. How would you, 2 pretty notable figures in the game, how would you compare and contrast those two?
At the time, they were more, to me, night and day. Yeah, I think over time, Coach Self maybe adapted to a more of a some of the things that I liked what Coach Self or Coach Williams did, and vice versa, because of how the game just evolved. But they were night and day at the time. Coach Williams, man, he was very big on making sure that we took it serious as players to make sure we're the number one team in the nation as far as scoring. So he took that serious. Like, we're getting the ball up and down. We want to play fast. Like, he's serious about that. He wants to see if there's one stat he cared about, he was looking to see if we led the nation in scoring. So, because he wanted to play fast, he wanted to get the ball out and go. You always will see him moving his hands, doing that. And then when we got with Coach Self, so it was less plays. We had our secondary break, and then after that, we're kind of freelancing and playing. And then we have a couple box sets. That's it. When Coach Self came, it was, he came from Big Ten play, slower basketball. So we're slowing things up. We got more. We probably had, we're not running as fast for sure. We're not running as fast. And then we probably had 15 set plays. So it was just a whole different dynamic, but they all equal to, like, as far as getting their players to buy in and trust in what they do, they both meet at the top on that. As far as their philosophies and how they did things, one wanted to run fast, one wanted to go slow. That was kind of just their preference. But at the end of the day, when it came to getting their players to buy in, they did. Now, I will say Coach Self, he knows it. Coach Self, he did have a couple issues those first couple years with Roy's guys because, that transition. Because literally, I look back at being a coach now, I look back at Coach Self, and I'm like, geez, man, we probably made it tougher to him than what we had to, because we were obviously still sad and upset and frustrated and all these other mixed emotions because Coach Williams left. And we're like, man, now you're wanting us to come in and play this is what our mindset. You're wanting us to play your way of basketball, and we just beat you the year before in the Elite Eight. So like, why do we want to? If anything, you should be asked. Like this is the way we're like. If anything, you should be asking us how we did things so you can adapt that way. And obviously, Coach Self. He didn't budge one bit. He didn't budge one bit. And then eventually, over time, we start seeing the ins and outs of his two game, the high low offense. We're like, okay, all right, we can see it now. We kind of see some angles, how to score out of it. So they were night and day, man. And obviously, Coach Self's fast play started when, in my opinion, we started getting a little bit faster when Wayne Simeon got hurt in the UMKC game when he dislocated his shoulder, because he was a high-low look. We could throw it into Wayne. We know he was going to do the turnaround jumper, and it was money every night, 20 and 10, and he got hurt. So we didn't have guys that we could just throw it in and know that somebody's going to get us 20 points just off of jump hooks and turnaround jumpers. So that's when Coach Self and Dooley and Jankovic, they created that ball screening option, that continuous ball screening option, and then that just kind of. And if you look at it now, man, they do a lot of that ball screening, dribble handoff type motion, and it all started from us. And they want to, if anything, you want to thank Hall of Famer Wayne again. I thank Wayne so much for getting me to look at KU. I wouldn't have had to look without KU, and we probably wouldn't have had this office if it wasn't for Wayne getting hurt. So, I mean, you can thank Wayne for again putting his mark on KU history.
Maybe an underrated player in KU history too sometimes.
Yeah.
So, as I said, you enjoy 3 more years in the program, and real credit to you, man. You earn more and more playing time as your career progresses. So you took that redshirt year, you took that redshirt freshman year, you took that sophomore year where you got a little bit of time here and there. You really took that, man, and you just kept earning more and more. And as you move in, you back up point guard role during your 4th year, and then you start 12 games as a 5th-year senior in 2005, 2006. In that season, you guys get a Big 12 regular season and tournament title. When you reflect on the 5-year window of your life today, what did you most enjoy about being a part of the KU basketball program?
The tradition. Yeah, it's the tradition, hands down. Once you get to that school, obviously you come to that school, you see the fans, and you see the 16,300 packed out. You see them on ESPN, you see all these positive things about them. But when you get there is when you start to understand the deep tradition and why the fans are the way they are. Why are they waiting and late night, overnight, camping out, waiting 24 hours in the cold? Like, why are they doing that? So you start understanding the rich history and the tradition, and you just fall in love with that program. And it's that tradition, man. That tradition is so deep, and obviously, we have the Naismith rules on the campus as well too, right by the field house in the DeBruce Center. So, the tradition with that is just that's what really draws you in once you get in there and fully has you committed to doing things the right way, trying to do things the right way.
Yeah. And when you think about KU's tradition, Allen Fieldhouse, I think the Fog is a big part of that. It's one of the most iconic arenas in college basketball. For those who've never been, and I've had the great fortune of stepping into the Fog and know what it's like. Never been there for a game, but been there. For those who've never been, though, for a game, paint a picture for them what the scene is like on game day, especially when you're playing in Oklahoma or a Mizzou, or you're playing one of those big rivals. What's that scene like?
It's electrifying. Man,
is it mean? Are the fans mean, or are the fans mean to the opposing teams? Are they comical?
Yeah, I would say they're not mean, and not really.
Then again,
comical.
You were never the source of their ire, I guess. Either.
I would say our fans are very respectful. I mean, if a player's acting mean, they'll boo you if you airball. if you airball a shot, they'll boo you for the whole entire game when you touch the ball. So if you shoot an airball early in the game and you're on the opposing team, every time you touch the ball, they're gonna yell air ball. That's the student section. The student section is wild. The student section is wild. They're the ones that kind of get everybody going. But not only the student section, because a lot of the student section, everybody in the stands are former students that went there, or they're trying to recruit a grandkid, and it's just a crazy atmosphere every time I go there for me. And I've heard from some people that haven't even played. They're like, man, every time I go in there, I get goosebumps. Like, like I could just start feeling like I could just start feeling some goosebumps now when I just get in this mindset of just like, either when you run out the tunnel, it's a different feeling. It's a whole different feeling. But even just being in that environment and just seeing how much they love and they care about basketball, the tradition there, the history, it's one of the best places to play in. It's one of the best. It obviously is the loudest arena to play in. They broke the decimal a couple years back, I believe, too. So it's one of the loudest.
Yeah. One of the, I would argue, one of the coolest center courts too, man. The big Jayhawk there on center court is really, really sweet. It is massive. So let's, speaking of Kansas hoops, let's give a shout out to your podcast, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I saw you started that last November with Coach Self as your debut guest, and you've had on some notable guests like Nick Collison, Danny Manning, some real KU greats. How did that adventure come about, and what have you enjoyed about that?
This is, it's been a great adventure. It's kind of put me on the opposite end. Normally I've been, kind of the interviewee where someone's interviewing me and I just kind of sit there and kind of can answer the questions. And, it's been it's kind of been a little bit of, not really a challenge, but just more of a shocking side. Just like, oh man, now I'm on the other side asking these guys, calling up, hey, can we get a pod in? What's up? When's your time? What time you got? So it's been a fun blessing to do this. I've always wanted to, obviously, to go as far as I could, as far as, I've had some opportunities to analyze games, be a color analyst, as well as do pregame, postgame shows. So I've had a wide range of mix of things as far as being an analyst for basketball. So kind of getting into the podcast game was just, to me, it was a no-brainer. Kind of how it came about was obviously with Jeff Goodman and Rob Dowser. They're the ones that are kind of heading that with the Field of 68. They just kind of reached out to a few coaches at KU, and for some reason they thought about me and passed along my information to those guys that reached out to me and wanted to see if I would be interested in running Rock Chalk Jayhawk. And I said, yeah, I love to. So it's been a fun adventure. Like I said, it was a new adventure for me, but the more I do it, the more I enjoy it. Cool, man.
So in addition to the podcast, you're coaching high school basketball now. Pembroke Hill in Kansas City, which, if I'm not mistaken, that actually produced the Rush brothers, right?
Pembroke? Yeah.
Yeah, and so what do you enjoy? I got a two-parter for you. What do you enjoy about being on that side of the game now, the coaching versus the playing? And then two, are you more Roy Williams or are you more Bill Self?
I think one of the things I appreciate about it is, like, for me, it's like when you get a win, when you see a big play, like for me, I used to experience it as a player, like selfishly, like, yeah, jumping up and down, high-fiving your teammates. But when you're as a coach, man, it's rewarding because you just get to see other guys kind of enjoy that success. To me, it's almost like, man, I've kind of been that player. I've been out there. I just want to kind of give back. One of the things I want to do is give back to the game. I want to try to help the game, do my part, and make it do my part and make the game a better than what when I got the game, I received it. I was taught well. I want to be able to bring on as many players as long as I can as well too, and give them that same experience that I had with the game. So to me, it's a very humbling and a very it's a position that I feel like when you're a coach, it's a blessing to be a coach, because you have kids that obviously have passions. They want to get better, but they're looking at you to help guide them in the right direction. And, you can guide them in the wrong direction or the right direction. You can say the wrong thing or the right thing to these kids. And, to me, it's the thought process of, really thinking about it to really make sure that you can try to give these kids the best advice moving forward to make them successful in life. To me, that's why I love coaching. And obviously, when I can coach my own sport, something that I love so much. And I've been blessed to have good kids a part of the program, and that makes it always better as well, too. So I just love giving back, man, and trying to make the game better than when I found it and when I first learned how to play basketball.
All right, man. But you got to ask me, are you more Roy Williams or Bill Self?
Yeah, my bad. I forgot. I got to rambling on that question. I forgot that part. Coaching style-wise, I'd probably say it's a mixture between both. And, I do use a lot of what I've learned from Coach Williams and Coach Self, and a lot of whether it's a saying that I might learn from Coach Williams or Self, or a set that we ran, or what he used to talk about when, stats in the locker room. What was he big on? I'll pull from both of those guys. And not only, I try not to just pull from those guys too. I've been blessed I've been coached by some really special guys. I mean, even Randy Springs, my high school coach, he won 3 state championships at 3 different schools: Sumner Academy, Highland Park, and Wyandotte. So, I've been around great coaches my whole life. And again, with Lafayette Norwood, who sat on the bench with, Lafayette Norwood had the undefeated season with Wichita Heights. So, I mean, I've been blessed to be around so many coaches to where I can kind of pick and pull from all these, to me, Hall of Fame coaches that I've been coached by. So it's hard for me to say which one I am. I pick and choose from both of those guys a lot.
Yeah.
So it might be
sense.
Roy, it might be himself.
You never thought you'd see the day where you had a bunch of sets you were calling out and didn't let a free-flowing game happen. You would kill the 21-year-old Jeff Hawkins if you wanted to listen to a bunch of sets.
Yeah.
So what are some of the a final question before we get to some rapid fire, man? What are I'm really curious about this as a guy who, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the game, specifically the high school level, since you were playing high school hoops to 2 decades ago? I mean, I watch a game now and I'm thinking like, my God, everyone's shooting threes. Teams are playing zone. Like when I was growing up, and we're about this, I'm a little older than you, but it was like when a team played zone, it was like they were being wusses. Now everyone's playing zone in these exotic zones, and it's really. So, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the game?
I mean, you said it. Everybody wants to go zone now. That's kind of the easy thing to do. Let's just drop in the zone. To me, I think that the game has gotten a little bit less physical. And again, but I heard that when, I was growing up, and I thought the game was physical when I played in high school. I would hear the old heads or, that played probably 10 years before me that would be coming to watch our games, saying the same thing. Oh, man, them refs are soft, man. They be calling everything. So, and we thought it was tough. So that's kind of always how the game evolves. But to me, it's the zone. It's the zone, and zone just, to me, it never sets good with me. It never.
So
does.
Let me ask you this, man. You as a player, you hung your head on defense, right?
Yeah.
And as someone who hung his head on defense, I would imagine you love the idea of like, hey, man, me against you, I'm going to stop you man to man. And I got to imagine like you're internally, it hurts you to have to play zone like you probably do sometimes, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you think about it. Zone is, zone, you're guarding an area. You're guarding an area in zone, and man to man, I got to lock up. And again, you could say in zone, okay, we're practicing help defense, but you're pretty much predicated to, you have one spot that you need to control. When you're a man, I got to lock you down and you can't score. That is tougher to me than than just guarding an area. Now, obviously, when you guard that area, you have to guard that area effectively. You can't just let your man drive around you. You can have a strong mindset from a man-to-man principle mindset. But to me, it's harder to play man. It's harder because it's harder to predict, where your man's going to cut, what type of help you have to be in. Are you one pass away? Are you two passes away? In zone, you just pretty much kind of know. When they throw the ball, okay, I'm almost in help every time. So I just think man to man it's easier. It's harder to teach, but I think if you teach it the right way and you can get your teams to understand all the man principles, you'll always be a better team at the end. But don't get me wrong. Do I think there are times where you need to go zone? Yeah. I don't think everybody should just do one thing at the same time. You should still know how to mix it up. And if you have a team that they can't shoot and they're just drivers and they can break you down, obviously, I think the smart thing to do is maybe try zone. Or if you don't do zone, at least do pack line D. Pack everything in man to man. That's normally my mindset. If we can't guard, we're gonna at least pack it in man to man. And if we're not guarding it with a packed in man to man, now I'm upset and I'm annoyed with my players. Like, now we gotta go zone. Thanks to you guys, you can't guard anybody. Hope this is what you want. So if you're in zone, that's why I make my players feel like we're only in a zone because you guys can't guard man to man. But that's the way that I think that's the most.
It's one of the biggest.
Yeah, it's a change. It's one of the big ones, but it's happening all over.
It's one of the biggest changes I've seen in the games, man. Yeah, I'm in Chicago, man. I'm a Chicago hoops guy, and I'll go to a high school game. Unfortunately, not this year, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, they're playing zone," and it doesn't happen like the Chicago Catholic League. These are man to man, line up and throw the ball up. Let's go. And it's like, what is going on?
I can't teach. I can't.
It's really unique. So I appreciate your take on it. And Jeff, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, man. But before we get out of here, let's close out the show with some cool kind of run and gun questions. So take the fog off the table. What is the coolest arena you played in over your 5 years at KU?
Probably Rupp Arena.
Rupp Arena, cool. Against UK, or was that for a tournament?
To me, I thought the atmosphere. It was at UK. Just I think we had worked out like a home and away or some type of deal. We started working out with them. Because we went down to them, and then the next year they came to us. And we beat them both of those times. Yeah.
There you go.
But
gotcha. KU over UK.
You say what?
I said KU over UK.
Yeah.
Rupp Arena, man. I've had some great stories about Rupp Arena because that's the site of the 1985 national championship game where Villanova beat Georgetown. And so those guys from Villanova have very warm memories of Rupp Arena.
Yeah.
All right, man. Craziest opposing fans.
Oh, that's hands down Missouri. But sadly to say, okay, you should expect it from Missouri KU. They hate each other. It's a rival. That thing is, that stuff dates back to some history about, Missouri and Kansas. But you would think Missouri's all the way, Missouri's the top. But then right below it, literally right below it is K-State. And you would think K-State would maybe be a little bit right here. We're in state. No, K-State. Man, Missouri, they just, they would just harass you, call you at, find out, they'd have your mom's cell phone number on a poster board. They might say, they're going to find your number. They're going to call you at 3 a.m. and just keep calling. They showed up to where, they knew exactly they knew our itinerary. They knew everything. They just stopped you that way. But then K-State would let off the freaking chickens when we were literally they let off live chickens before the game starts, right bar our bench. And I never understood that, the live chickens. And then their fans were so rude, man. Still to this day, for real, man, annoys me. They'd be throwing coins on, they'd be throwing coins at us. I got hit with a couple quarters. A couple players got hit with nickels. I really did not like I could stand Missouri because they just hated us and they might say something nasty to us, but they weren't like throwing really. They weren't. They threw stuff at us sometimes, but it was consistent. Every time I went to K-State, I knew I was getting something thrown at me. Missouri, I knew I was going to get a wake-up call at 4 a.m. saying, hey, it's time to go to class or something crazy. They're just going to, they're going to find a way. The Antlers were Missouri. They had the Antlers.
Gotcha. What was, you talked about Missouri, you talked about K-State. What was the team you most enjoyed beating?
Team I most enjoyed beating probably would be K-State and Missouri.
It's fun to take it to them, right?
The team? Because you know how much they hated you, man. So you just had to be like, we want to beat you so bad, especially at your place. Yeah, for sure.
And what was the team you least enjoyed playing? So I'm thinking about a team here. Maybe they were really physical, or a team that played such a unique style. Mm-hmm. It was a team that you played and maybe you're just like, man, these guys they're hard to beat, man. You know, like I've asked this question to Big Ten guys, and I always hear Wisconsin, but then I always hear Northwestern, which is strange. But they say like, with Northwestern, it's just they play such a different style than anyone else that it was just hard to kind of know what you were going up against, even though they weren't as talented as some of the other teams. So what team did you guys find was kind of like, man, these guys are just tough to play?
I mean, that's a good question. And I mean, it's like I got two answers. I got a soft answer and I got a hard answer. My hard answer is, it's really no team really, because like we know going to KU, like we're getting everybody's best shot. So like if we come in like, man, we don't want to play this team, then we look at it like, why you sign up to play here then? Like you should be wanting to play the best of the best. And like, even if it was like we got them stacked up, the best of the best of the best the whole season, like that's why you came here. You came here because the fans, the stands are going to be packed. You came here because ESPN, CBS, ABC, getting those primetime games to where your friends can watch you on TV. So, like, that's that mindset. But that's why I said that's more my hard answer. Like, yeah, man, that was our mindset. Like, really wasn't anybody. But if I had to think, like, of a team like we really didn't, like, really didn't like playing, I would say for me it was probably, like, Texas. Like, and it was like the Texas days with TJ Ford, James Thomas, Kevin Booker, Kevin Bookout. I mean, man, those dudes were. That's when Texas was rolling, man. Like, man, we didn't like playing those guys because you knew it was gonna. Even when they came to our place, you knew it was gonna be a good game, and you knew when you went to their place, like they were gonna bring it. But I would say Texas, man, and that was kind of throughout my whole career. Like Texas was always like a tough game for us, at least at their place. Our place, we kind of obviously you kind of know how the record is in the field house. We kind of have that six man. But I would say Texas. It would probably be Texas, maybe an Oklahoma State. No matter what year Oklahoma State had. Yeah. It was always tough to play there. Always tough to play there. Then when Coach Self got there, it was even more hard to play because now Coach Self has this added pressure of I got to win at the school that I played at, and then we're feeling it from him. So Oklahoma State's kind of up there too. I know for Coach Self.
So that's awesome, Jeff. Well, hey man, let's end it there and let you get down with the night, man. And so appreciate you joining us here on the 19.9 podcast. Thanks, of course, to Jeff Hawkins, the Jayhawk, for joining us here and discussing KU hoops. And thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Visit 199.com for some of the flyest college basketball gear around and subscribe to our podcast for more shows celebrating basketball history and culture. Until next time, this is the Chucker signing off.
Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot 9-inch game inside that 3-point.
Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast with HVS, the high volume shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 199.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts. Till next time.